Hello dear listener, my name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Welcome to the 6th episode of Mogobe's Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. Today I'm going to talk about real estate. Specifically, I'm going to talk about due diligence. I'm going to give you 10 nuggets of wisdom concerning real estate. Specifically, I'm going to talk about how to successfully conduct due diligence in a property deal. I've been approached by a number of individuals, maybe after my talks, some of them in some of our buildings. They want to know how we go about the process of acquiring real estate and property here in Botswana. Now, these 10 nuggets are as follows. Number one, view the property. Once you have identified the property, you may have seen it in the government gazette or something like that, and you are interested in that property, be sure to go and view that property. Physically attend the property and check on it. That may seem simplistic, but sometimes people buy properties sight unseen without even having had a look at it. And my first nugget of wisdom is go and view the property. Number two, obtain and review all the documentation pertaining to the property. Let me break that down for you. This means that you should ask to be furnished with all the lease agreements pertaining to the property. I'm giving this talk in the context of commercial real estate. You want to peruse all the leases. You want to see the clauses in the lease relating to escalations. You want to make sure, in my case, I would want to see if there's an 8% escalation and there's a 10% escalation. The other documentation that you want to have a look at is formal documentation pertaining to the property. For instance, you may want to see the approved drawings for the property. That is very important to see that the property has been built in accordance with those approved drawings. Because what can happen, and we've suffered this disadvantage, where we were excited and acquired a property without checking the approved drawings, you find that the owner had only sought approval for a portion of that property and did some extensions later. And when you try to get licenses and you get tenants in there for those additional portions, you are not able to do so. So this is very important to peruse those properties. Check also whether there are occupation permits, documentation having to do with the council. Make sure that all that is in order. That is part of the due diligence exercise. Number three, make a written offer. Once you have identified the property and you have reviewed it, I suggest that you make a written offer preliminarily to secure your interests so that you lock the property up. In your letter of offer pertaining to that property, be sure to include the following phrases. This offer is subject to due diligence and bank finance. What that does is give you a leeway in case of any subsequent discovery during the due diligence process. And I would also suggest that in that letter of offer, you must mention that you have a limited period of time within which to do the due diligence. I would propose that you give a period of 14 to 30 days to do that due diligence exercise. Number four, allow for a reasonable time. And this ties in with what I said earlier, what constitutes reasonable time for purpose of that due diligence. During this period, you are going to meet with the tenants who are in that existing property. So it may take time to secure the presence of those tenants or to go and find where they live so that you can understand what's happening on the property. And you'll see why time is required when I deal with other nuggets of wisdom that are coming. Number five, secure the services of a structural engineer. This is so important. There are two items that are vital for the survival of property structurally. One is the foundation and the other is the roof. Those two items, you would want to have a structural engineer assess them and assess and establish the structural integrity of that building. Yes, it might be a little pricey. Structural engineers don't do their work for free, ladies and gentlemen. You may have to part with a little bit of money, but believe me, in the context of due diligence, this is a very vital step. And ensure that your structural engineer actually produces a written report which you can analyze and use in subsequent discussions. Number six, do a thorough deed search. This one you can ask your lawyer to do for you, but it is an easy exercise. What you want to do is go to the Registrar of Deeds, which is in Gaborone, is located in the building that houses the Attorney General's chambers. You just go there and ask them to show you the title deed pertaining to that property. What you are looking out for is the existence of any encumbrances or any liens over that property that may not have been previously disclosed. Number 7, get a lawyer to prepare a detailed sale agreement. The sale agreement is also known as a deed of sale. What am I talking about? I'm talking about a detailed and comprehensive document which sets out all the terms of the deal once you are sure that you are interested in this property. But make sure these 2 important clauses are included in that deed of sale. One is a clause relating to full disclosure. You have to make a provision that the seller of that property gives you full disclosure and what happens in the event that the information he or she gave you is inadequate. There must be a clause there that gives you the ability to resign from the contract or to cancel the contract if there's a material item or a material piece of information that the seller has not given to you. And the other clause is the due diligence clause. Here, remember, I've told you in the letter of offer, you've given 15 to 30 days or so for the purpose of the due diligence exercise. When now you draw up the sale agreement, you have an opportunity to extend the due diligence period and say that due diligence runs until the date of transfer. This will cover you in making sure that between the time you sign the deed of sale and the date of transfer, if you discover something really huge, something really cataclysmic about the property that was not disclosed to you at the beginning, you then have the ability to get out of the deal. Number 8, this is the 8th nugget of wisdom that you need for purposes of due diligence in a commercial property. Listen to me, this one is very important. Find out, have a conversation with the seller. Find out exactly why the seller wishes to sell. During that conversation, the seller will disclose to you the pain points or the issues around which they wish to sell. And you want to find out whether those issues can have consequences for your ownership. There are instances where sellers sell property after having sold it to other people before. What do you want to avoid like a plague? Listen to me, dear listener. What you want to avoid like a plague is a situation where you've bought the property and then you find out subsequently that there's litigation and there's all kinds of disputes over the property. Another danger zone is where the property is the subject of a deceased estate and where siblings may be fighting over that estate. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy such properties, but you should come in with your eyes wide open, and it is during this conversation, crucial conversation that you have with the seller, that these items may be disclosed. Number 9, conduct a thorough inspection of the property. I know I talked about the structural engineer, but I'm now talking about a thorough inspection now as you're going forward with your team. Who is a member of this team? You want to bring your electrician or electrical engineer. You want to bring also someone who knows about plumbing. You want to bring your plumber or somebody who's an expert in plumbing. You want to bring specialists also in mechanical engineering. I'm talking about air conditioning and things like that, so that they can now go through with you on the property with a professional eye to identify what the property is really worth. Number 10, go and see if you can get a thing called a desktop valuation of the property. In the event that the seller has not given you a valuation at the beginning, it is very important that you obtain a desktop valuation. This is something that a valuer can give to you without necessarily charging a huge amount that the detailed valuation entails. And normally this is done on the understanding that when and if the bank wants a more detailed valuation, you can come back to the same person. Then you go back and meet with the seller and discuss the valuation, and then consider how you can have the price adjusted to suit your pocket. You'll be armed with a number of documents which I've mentioned, the structural report, maybe reports also from your own team. I've had the privilege recently of looking at a property that I wanted to buy. I mean, as recently as 3 days ago, we went to the Mohoditani. I won't show you the details, but this is an inspection report which I obtained. It talks about electrical cables being out of whack. It talks about the bulb holders. It talks about the cracks. And it's fairly detailed. And this was professionally prepared by my team. And this sort of document, ladies and gentlemen, is very, very important. I always, in this podcast, throw a little bonus at you. And this is number 10. This is tip number 10. Number 11, I beg your pardon. The bonus. What is it that I can throw at you as an additional point? Check the bills. What do I mean by that? Go to the utility companies. I'm referring to Botswana Power Corporation. I'm referring to Water Utilities Corporation. I'm also referring to the City Council, where there may be issues of rates. Check that all these things are paid for. If your lawyer is good, you will have mentioned in the deed of sale that the seller is responsible for the rates up to the day of transfer. So the rates are not usually a problem. But when it comes to utilities, water, electricity, you don't want to be shocked when you're already in ownership of the property and then you cannot make full use of it, or you don't enjoy it because you are busy being chased after for water bills and electricity bills. So thank you very much for listening to me, dear listener, dear viewer. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe and like, click and the appropriate button. Until next time, thank you so much for your attention.